Welcome to Revelations, the place where we speak truth to power. I'm Cole Johnson, and I'm so glad you're able to join me. How should I introduce my next guest? Well, I will do it this way. He has a varied list of entertainment and business credits. I mean, it's insane. You name it, he's done it. Acting, singing, instrumental playing, voiceover work, being a radio personality, a writer. Oh, did I even mention that he has entrepreneurial interests too, in alcohol, food, games, and toys as well? Well, if I didn't, I apologize. Ladies and gentlemen, author, radio host and producer, actor, singer, musician, and wrestler, Brimstone. And this is his revelation. Well, how you doing, brother? Welcome to Revelations.
Finally, Brimstone has made it to Revelations, hanging out with Cole. It's going to be an unbelievable time. I've been looking forward to seeing your smiling face and making some conversation happen. And here we are. So here we are. What are we doing? What are we doing today?
Well, we're celebrating you, sir.
Me?
That's what we're doing. Yes, you.
I think we should celebrate you. You're more important. I think it would be a lot more fun.
Thank you. But I as much as my ego would like that, I think it wouldn't work quite so well. But well, as you can see, this is a wonderful personality, and I've actually grown to like him in the very short time I've actually gotten to know him.
Oh, you're too sweet.
And you see this engaging personality. Well, we're going to even open it even further with our segment opener called "Open the Way." Now, with Open the Way, conversation starts when vulnerability enters the room. And obviously, I don't think we'll have an issue with vulnerability here. But all of the things I've mentioned, voiceover acting, author, musician, all of those things strike me as either you grew up in LA or New York. But seeing how you are, I would lean more toward the East Coast. So, how was your upbringing in the New York area, or am I wrong in alluding to you growing up in New York?
No, I'm New York. I'm Long Island. What do you call it? It's I had the best and worst of both worlds. What do you call it? My mother and my father had gotten divorced when I was very young. My mother had lived in Uniondale with myself. Uniondale is what do you call it? A predominantly black area. I was one of the only white kids there. I grew up with people like Busta Rhymes and Leaders of the New School and cats like that. We all came from the same area, and what do you call it? Around the same time. So what do you call it? While my mom and I were there, my father was in Dix Hills, which is a very rich area. So it was like, I had a very weird upbringing because, I did have the best and worst of both worlds in terms of, financing, you know what I mean? Financially rather, my mother, was kind of, trying to make things work. And my father, wound up hitting a good drive and started doing really, really well for himself. And, the fact of the matter is I learned, how important working hard was, how important making money was, how important saving money was, how important being good to people was, and, I got all that good stuff from my mother. And then I got all the good stuff from my father. I got the drive, I got the relationship building. I got, you know what I mean? So there were different things I got from both. But, for me, I wouldn't have had it any other way. It was a great upbringing. My mom was fantastic, and I love my dad. And matter of fact, I'm going to see him next week. So at the end of the day, I'm happy, man. Would I have liked to have had a little bit more money growing up? Sure, but at the end of the day, you don't respect what you have after you earn it. You know what I mean? Coming from a background like I had.
Yeah. Yeah. I can totally understand that. Yeah. Well, the hip hopper in me, when you mentioned Long Island, that would you actually mentioned names that I was throwing in my head. I was like, Long Island, okay, Eric B. and Rakim, Public
Hmm.
Enemy, Lisa New School, and then you mentioned
EPMD.
Eleanor West. Oh,
Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, wow, all
Yeah.
right,
I just spoke with Dinko literally yesterday. Literally
oh
yesterday.
wow,
He messaged me to congratulate me. I just won. I didn't win. I just was put out there for 40 over 40 for Podcast Magazine. What do you call it? Which was great. One of the biggest influencers in podcasting. So that was a beautiful thing. And but I just spoke with Dinko. It's we try to chat as often as possible, but schedules are just absolutely ridiculous.
right,
But you keep it real. Dinko, C Brown,
mm-hmm.
C Brown and I, we lived literally behind each other. So what do you call it? And him and his sisters were the original Black Doublemint twins, who
Mm-hmm.
I'm still very close with to this day. So you know what I'm saying? Like, the Uniondale
Wow,
family sticks together, and
mm-hmm.
a lot of talent came out of that little area.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
LL's cousin lived right down the block, so I used to see LL all the time.
Right,
Across the way from me was my friend Shoba, whose cousin was in Houdini, so he used to be there all the time. I
mm-hmm.
used to be at the Friendlies, I used to work at the Friendlies, which was pretty much about like 3-4 blocks from my house.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an iconic Friendlies. And the reason for that is because every major hip hop star from the East Coast would always be there because it's right in Uniondale, right in between and near Hempstead and Roosevelt and Freeport and so forth. And
Right,
everybody would congregate over in that one Friendlies. So, for years, people like Salt and Pepper and like I said, LONS, which I knew, and Houdini and LL and what do you call it? EPMD and
mm-hmm.
Black Sheep and you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
all these cats used to come in and Public Enemy all the time.
mm-hmm.
And it's funny because about oh Lord, maybe about 6 years ago, 7 years ago at this point, I was in LA signing for Kamikaze, which was when Stan was alive, Stan Lee.
Mm-hmm.
It was the show that Stan was a part of. And Stan was a good friend of mine, and Stan would call me up every year. So Brimstone, do you think you could come out and do something for for the Kamikaze and hang out with old Stan? Yeah, of course, whatever you need, Stan. So what do you call it? So I'd go out and I'd sign out there. And I wound up going with, don't mind me, I just gotta fix my ears here. What do you call it? I went out after the event with my buddy DMC, from Run DMC,
Right,
and a couple other people, and we went out to hang out backstage at Black Eyed Peas because they
mm-hmm.
were in town. And Taboo is fantastic, and
Mm-hmm.
Taboo and D and I were all sitting around, and everybody was like hanging out, and what do you call it? As we're sitting and having the conversation, what do you call it? Which again, being a fly on the wall of that kind of a conversation is just insane. But what do you call it? While that was going on, apparently Flav was there and he was walking
Mm-hmm.
off stage. And now I haven't seen Flav since I was little, but I kind of have the same face. And
Mm-hmm.
he gets off and he looks at me and he's like, and I was like, yeah, you know me. I was like, and he's looking at me, he goes, why? I know you and I know the face. And I'm like, Uniondale, New York, Friendlies on Jerusalem Avenue. He goes, oh my God. And a huge hug and pounds and what do you call it? We caught up and he's like, I heard you wound up wrestling and blah, blah, blah. And but yeah, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's me, man. So what do you call it? We reconnected then, which was awesome. And he's in and out. Again, we all have such crazy varying schedules that
Right.
don't necessarily get to see people all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but they're always up here and in here. So, but it was great to reconnect.
Wow, that is wonderful. Such a rich childhood and wow, rich adolescent life. and probably rich their young adulthood life just from that alone. Wow. Okay.
Experiences to me are more worth more than money.
Mm,
Accomplishments to me are worth more than money. I absolutely, am proud of where I came from. I still represent Uniondale to this day. And at the end of until the end of time, that's where I came from. You don't change your past. You can't
right.
change your past. All you can do is be proud of what you did and where you came from. Some people like to hide the things they've done, or that where they've come from, and they're ashamed of things. It's like, no, that's what helped to create you. That's what made you who you are. You know what I mean? That's what makes you original. So to this day, I'll always represent Uniondale, and represent Long Island, New York. It is what it is. Strong Island.
Yeah, that's what they called it. And that's what they still call it now.
Hmm.
You probably gave me the tagline to my show because that's basically how I feel. Each person has a unique journey, and how you started helps to make your footprint original.
Hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Now, I'm glad that you are a proud Strong Islander. Uh, I always wanted to ask this question of those who lived in that area. So, why is it, do you think that, and you can talk about it from a hip hop standpoint, you can talk about it from a non hip hop standpoint. Why is it that when we mention the New York City area or metropolitan area, we hear about Manhattan and Brooklyn and Queens and the Bronx and even New Jersey or Jersey and Staten Island? We hear them before you mention Long Island. Why is that impression seemingly there?
Well, because Long Island, you know what I mean. Um, even though we've got the hood here, you know what I mean. It's different when you're talking. People like to say boogie down Bronx. They like to say
Mhm.
Manhattan. People are more familiar with New York City. They're familiar with dirty Staten Island, dirty Jersey, you know what I mean, like things
Yeah.
like that.
Hmm.
And like, I don't know, I guess maybe it makes people think they're harder if they come from those areas, Queens, you know
Yeah.
what I mean. I don't know,
Hmm.
but Long Island is more of a rather than the city, because all those
Right.
other areas of the city,
Right.
we're not, you know what I mean. We're
Hmm.
we're it's a completely different animal. I mean, but again, like I said, and you said there's so much royalty that's come
Hmm.
off the island in terms
Yeah.
of music, in terms of entertainment in general, in terms of business. I mean, there's so many major names that have come from Long Island, and some that still represent and some that don't.
Hmm.
It is what it is. I mean, Busta doesn't necessarily always like to rep Uniondale, or
Hmm.
Long Island. He I'm pretty sure, pretty sure he reps either Queens or Brooklyn, you know what I mean, or something like,
Hmm.
but he was in Uniondale High School.
Right.
So,
Right.
but great guy. I haven't seen him in forever. I,
Hmm.
I haven't spoken to him in forever. The last time I saw him, he had a car shop on Uniondale Avenue, and I happened to be driving by one day, and I seen him on the side of the road, and I could get the hell out of here. It's Busta. So let me stop and say hello. I was like, "What's going on? How you been?" And he was just, "Oh, hey man." He looked like he was having a rough day. I was like, "All right, it was good to see," and I bounced.
Hmm.
But what do you call it? Like I said, the other guys I speak to on a regular.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I've always wanted to ask that question of a Long Islander because I was like, I've seen that. I've seen that impression often. And
Yeah.
back when I was listening to hip hop back in the day, I was hearing that as well. It's like, oh, so this is like the forgotten area of New York. Okay,
but
interesting.
more people have come from Long Island than anywhere else in terms of name value, you
And
know.
I've heard that too. Right.
And technically, Queens is kind of considered
Right.
Long Island. You know what I
Right.
mean? Even though I don't consider it Long Island, I consider it the city. A
Hmm.
lot of people call it, and consider it Long Island, but it's
Right.
not. You get the Long Island accent when you're from Long Island. You know.
Right. Oh man. Well, yeah, you definitely sufficiently opened the way. I totally appreciate this. Let's see. Actor, voice actor, musician, serial entrepreneur, and all sorts of other things. Brimstone joins me here on Revelations. He's definitely opened the way. And we're going to debut a new segment because this guy is so special of a talent that we have to introduce something different. So I think it's time we go up in ascension. Now, at Ascension, we rise with the times. So, you, sir, were an actor at an early age. So, when did you first become an actor, and did you like being a child actor?
So, what do you call it? I started probably I had to been 5 or 6. What's funny,
Mhm,
and I'll share it with you. So here, my you can see on my I gotta be careful with what I show, but if you see my
mhm.
SAG after card here, shows since 1980.
Man.
So I've been in the industry for quite some time.
Mhm,
What do you call it? I started like, I was born in 74, so
mhm.
I was young when I
Yeah.
started. So 1980,
Mhm. Yeah.
I is when I started my career. I was about 6.
Mhm.
And what do you call it? At the end of the day, I started Sesame Street. I started on Romper Room, and my mom was thinking, well, he's cute. Let's put him on TV and try to get him into things. And it's funny because well, it's not funny. My mother passed away a few years ago,
Right.
and what do you call it? What is funny is that while going through all the stuff in the house, we found a whole bunch of my old paperwork for obviously for acting and so forth. And
Mhm.
and what's crazy is I had more agents then than I have now.
Wow.
I was represented pretty well, and so like I said, did Sesame Street, did Romper Room. Then I did a whole bunch of auditions. I remember just very few things. I remember auditioning for what do you call it, Rice Krispies, for A1 steak sauce. I did a few things. I don't remember everything. But at the end of the day, I was a kid, and that's where it started. And it was great from what I remember. I was a little freaked out because on the set of Sesame Street,
Mhm.
there were things that as a kid you don't understand. And
Right.
what do you call it? There was one point where Big Bird, who's Carol Spinney, who I reconnected with well later in life, so he walks over, and we were off screen, and it was the end of the episode, and my mom and I were standing there, and he comes over and he starts talking, and to my mother, and then two guys come over and they pull the top half of Big Bird off of
Mm.
off his body, and now there's a man on the inside of Big Bird. I'm going, oh my god, they just killed Big Bird. I was like, what's going on? There's a man inside of him. What's going on? And then as they're carrying off the head, I turn around and I see Snuffleupagus in the rafters. I go, oh my god, they killed Snuffy. Like what? Like,
Oh man.
yeah, so I was freaking out as a kid. Yes, you don't know, you don't understand.
Right.
What do you call it? I don't know. I don't know. It was a really interesting time. It was a really interesting time in my life. And my mother and my father, since they'd been split, if you've ever been or people that are coming from a divorced home,
Mhm.
sometimes there's back and forth and tugging of tug of war on the kids. So
Right.
there were days that my father wanted to see me, so my mother couldn't bring me into the city for auditions and blah blah blah. And there was so my child acting kind of was cut short, where it could have probably been a lot bigger than it was. And it is what it is, though. Time goes by, and I found my love of comic books, and
Right.
what do you call it? And then I found my love of comic books, and I wanted to draw. Again, everything came full circle. When I met Stan Lee, I used to read all his books. So,
Mhm.
and then I became Stan's, friend and the celebrity spokesperson for his foundation. I mean, that was mind blowing. Now, I didn't draw my comics, but that came full circle also. And I
Mhm.
wound up, with my own comic book series and helped to build the universe and create the characters and write the book. And
Mhm.
along with another writer and a friend of mine, Marcello Carnevale. And that was my first love, but then my first true love,
Mhm.
outside of the ladies, but my first true love came in the form of music. And
Yes.
I'm, like, again, I have a hip hop background. My first cassette was the Fat Boys. You know what I mean? Which is
Mhm.
really, really funny because I just had Apache Ramos from the Warriors
Hmm.
on the Grindhouse Radio, and
Mhm.
I didn't realize this, but apparently he was the Fat Boys tour manager way back when, which I
Oh,
had no idea he was a part of that whole situation. And
I didn't either. Okay.
fantastic story, and trust me, he has no problem telling it. He goes on forever. And I think I talk a lot. Apache, he goes on forever. So but anyway, he I had the Fat Boys, I had Run DMC, I had, you know what I mean, I had all hip hop before any rock ever came into the picture.
Yeah.
So I really loved, the hip hop beats and so forth. And when I was in school, I was in elementary. First, they give you the little, what do they call that thing
The
again? The
recorders.
recorders. Oh my
Mhm.
god! Somebody needs to get shot. Whoever came up with those things. I have 3 kids, and I went through it with all 3 of them. But then
Oh
they gave
no.
me the opportunity. They gave me the opportunity. To well, I'm sorry. Then it went to violin, and
Mhm.
the people that can play violin are fantastic, but
Oh yes.
you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I wasn't for me. Do I look like a violin kind of guy to you? Um, and I could be, but anyway. But so then they outside of orchestra, then they allowed us to do band, and
Ah.
and then band, was they get this? Well, what would you like to do? And there was drums, and I go,
Mhm.
I want to do that, and the rest was history. I wound up playing, and and it was fantastic. I became a drummer, and I drummed all through college, and went to school for music, and out of college, and toured with music, and loved music tremendously. It was really, I fell in love with it. And the cool thing is where I what I believe made me unique at the time, because now everybody kind of does it, but back when people didn't merge rap and hip hop with heavy metal and rock. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Right.
And I was in some heavy bands because I was put into right when I was supposed to be going into middle school, my mother put me into a private school.
Mhm.
And the private, so I went from being like one of the only white kids in the school to being in an all white school where most of them were rich and all of them were Jewish. So
Mhm.
I was the kid that used to be in class in Uniondale, having to tell everybody and teach them about Hanukkah and Purim and all that other stuff. So
Mhm.
now I'm just like, it was super culture shock. But anyway,
Mhm.
I wound up playing rock and then metal, but I would throw a hip hop beat behind all the rock music. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
I might throw in like like a steady groove, and then all of a sudden I'd throw it back and like that, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Just like
Yeah.
throw some hip hop in there, because that's what I loved. I always loved that. And even today, I mean, I've got 2 tracks that I'm working on with some friends. One with my friend Law, from Amy Winehouse band when she was still alive,
Mhm.
and another one with a couple of friends I can't tell you about. And
Right.
but I'm rapping on them. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I'm spitting. So
Nice.
hopefully they'll work out well, and I won't look like too much of a white boy. But at the end of the day, Eminem did okay. I'm just
Yeah.
messing around. But it's for me, it was hip hop was life. And it still isn't. It's funny because people, when they see me, they automatically assume that I'm just a metal guy, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and I like metal. I love it. I love, heavy stuff and all that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's all hip hop, man. When I'm driving in the car, for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
I'm grooving to, anything that has a hip hop beat. You know what I mean? Whether it's old school, new school. I'll throw in some Onyx. You know what I mean? Like I'll throw
Mm-hmm.
in any of the boys from the East Coast. Then I go out to the West Coast with Snoop and Dre, and you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
get a little crazy with Bizarre. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I love the style, and I love everything about it. But yeah, so music was my first love. I know I got off track, but it's been a day.
No, well, I just one, I understand, and two, I figured that music would be your first love, considering when you talked about it and opened the way, being surrounded by so many hip hop artists is like, okay, so music must be his first love.
Hmm.
Uh, and I do love the fact that you also say, well, yeah, I do look like a guy who probably listens to metal, and I love it, but hip hop really is my thing, and I'm similar. I mean, it's I love listening to hip hop, but I do have an ear toward metal. And whenever I am around mixed company, and I will probably sing a metal song, I have jaws drop. So I totally understand what you mean. Totally
It
understand what you
happens
mean.
more often than you'd think. A
Hmm.
lot of, well, law. What do you call it? He is an amazing musician, but like I said, he's from Amy Winehouse band,
Hmm.
and what do you call it? He came up with like P Funk and played with them, and George Clinton's like his godfather and all that type of stuff. But
Hmm.
he loves rock and metal, man, and it's funny because he'll sit and give you the history and
Hmm.
everything. And he's a black guy. He's a black guy.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
so, for me, I see no color. So I don't care. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? If you're
Yeah.
white, black, Latino,
Hmm.
Asian, doesn't make a difference to me.
Yeah.
It's you could, and music is that language that you can vibe no matter who
Right.
you are, where you're from. So people need to stop seeing color. People need to stop seeing race and just see people. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it's just, it is what it is. Oh, why? Because you're black, you can't like rock music, and I'm white,
Right.
so I can't like hip hop.
Yeah.
What's really funny is that the world right now, there's probably more white kids listening to hip hop than there are black kids listening
Listen
to
to
hip
metal.
hop.
Hmm. Oh,
No,
yeah.
listening to hip
Hip
hop.
hop. You're right. You're right. You're probably right about that.
Dude, it's
Oh my
crazy.
gosh. Yeah, it is
It's
crazy.
because it's become so mainstream, and that's awesome.
Right.
By the way,
Yeah.
41 years just happened. MTV just had their 41-year anniversary,
Right.
and I was in front of my TV when it first came on. So what do you
Hmm.
call it? So I've been on this journey with MTV and music, even though they're not music anymore. But
Right.
everything from the Buggles, you know what I mean, just
Hmm.
starting off. So we had the opportunity to watch these musicians become huge rock stars and legendary hip hop artists. And so yeah, man, what do you call it? I just love music, man. I love Disney music. So I don't
Yeah.
even care. I don't even
Yeah.
care.
I'm the same, man. I can listen to, I can do some Metallica. I can listen to Beethoven. I can listen to anything in between. I'm with you on that, man. Totally with you on that.
How about that new thing with with Metallica with Stranger Things? How it blew up.
Love it.
Isn't that
See,
crazy?
it is crazy.
It's
It's
crazy.
yeah, it's absolutely. I love it. I love it. I love for them, and I love for the music in general. Definitely,
And Kirk Hammett's one of the nicest guys too, by the way. So
man. I need to
one
meet him.
year, we are signing at New York Comic Con, and Celebro is I want to say that was the year that it was Hogan next to me. It was Hulk Hogan,
Hmm.
Jason David Frank, who I know well, a bunch of people, and then on the right of me was no, it was a different year. I forgot who was next to me on that one. That was a different year. It was scratch that. That was a different year. But Kirk Hammett was to the right of me, and what do you call it? His what do you call it? His bodyguard Chris at the time for whatever, for that event or when he's in this area. But Big Chris, I knew for quite some time because he had been friends with Bumblefoot, who's from Guns N' Roses, and Bumble and I are
Hmm.
close. And what do you call it? Uh, Kirk, and I were introduced to each other, and he was the sweetest guy. Then we started signing and everybody was doing their thing. And
Mm-hmm.
my little one at the time was really little, so she was just first starting like to walk and run. And
Mm-hmm.
she made her way over to Kirk's area, which was, like I said, it was right next to me. So, but
Mm-hmm.
he was like a little bit in front of me, like, so my table was pushed back a little bit, his was
Yeah.
pushed forward a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
she was running circles underneath his chair, because the chairs the chair was high. She was running circles around his chair while he's signing, and
Mm-hmm.
Chris is freaking out, going, "What are you doing? No, you got to take your kid." And Kirk's like, "What are you leave her? She's having a good time. She's adorable." I was like, "Oh, he's this guy. This guy can roll. I like him. I like
Mm-hmm.
him. He can hang." So, Kirk Hammett, great guy in my book. So any success to Metallica, they deserve it, simply based on the fact that Kirk Hammett allowed my kid to run circles around him while signing at New York Comic Con. There we
Mm.
go.
I like that. I like that a lot. That
You
is
want
awesome.
stories? I'll give you stories.
I see. I see. And you mentioned a name that I am familiar with. Well, of course, I'm familiar with Kirk Hammett as well. Hulk Hogan. So, with that being said, when did you become a wrestler, and what promotions have you wrestled in?
I've wrestled everywhere that has an acronym. I don't give names, but you can find them. What do you call it? But I've been around. I was around for a real long time. I wrestled for about 20 years, and I the thing with pro wrestling is, I got into professional wrestling because I got sick of being in a five-way marriage, in a band.
Right.
What happens is, first of all, it's hard enough to be in a relationship with one person.
Hmm.
But when you have to be in a relationship with four or five other people, depending on how many people are in your band, like I said, the big issue is that everybody has different attitudes, everybody is a different type, and sometimes they don't vibe when you've got to be spending lots and lots and lots of time with each other. And for me, I was the type of person who, I wanted to be huge. I wanted to go out, I wanted to become a name, I wanted to be able to support my family, I wanted to be
Hmm.
able to, um have people know my music, or anything else I did. And what do you call it? So I was consistently pushing. I was consistently doing interviews and making connections. I mean, like Long Island,
Hmm.
back in the day, and Manhattan and so forth. When I was younger, I knew everybody, and everybody knew me, in the music industry. So,
Right.
like, that was what I wanted to do. And when you got guys in the same band that, where I want to go and stay in big hotels and have filet mignon, they
Hmm.
want to pretend like, to live in a van, and you know what I mean, and live on the road and so forth, and and not, quote unquote, sell out. And I'm like, well, I already did that. I already came from nothing, and I expect to be able to give my kids more than that. So I decided, at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? I need to take a break from music. I honestly, I thought it was only going to be a small break. I figured I'd go back. Then I got into pro wrestling, and I uh, I never looked back. Even though
Hmm.
I miss it. I miss playing so much. And every time I have the opportunity to get behind a kit, I'll play.
Right.
But what do you call it? But wrestling, man. I mean, that's what gave me my name.
Right.
Even though I had a solid following back when, you got to also understand. I don't know how old you are, but I'm 47. I'm going to be 48 in another couple of weeks,
Hmm.
and we didn't have internet back then. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
We had basic stuff. So to get your name out and to work and be in front of people, I mean, you had to actually work and make things happen. What do you call it? So, at the end of the day, these people, like today, they don't understand how easy they have it and how good they have it with the internet and being able to do this, and
Right.
your stuff is online. Back when we didn't have that luxury, it just wasn't a thing. So, when I had the opportunity, to go from music into wrestling, it was like, I needed to take a break from the band thing. I'll be back. I'll go into wrestling, and and I didn't even expect to do that. And now I'm lost because I started going on a rant and I rambled. So what was the question again? Can you
No, I asked, when did you become a wrestler, and how many
when
promotions did you wrestle
96
in? 96. Okay.
96 I started.
Hmm.
I what do you call it? And I like I said, I wrestled for hundreds of different promotions.
Hmm.
What do you call it? I started to train at the LIWF, the doghouse, and
Hmm.
the way I got there was at the time when I was still in music. That's where I was going with it. When I was still in music, I knew everybody. I was working for the Long Island Voice, which was the sister publication of the Village Voice.
Okay.
That was Andrea Stern's little pet project. Andrea was the daughter of the owner of Stern Publishing, which owned the Village Voice.
Right.
So she was like, I want to do the Long Island version. So we were there, and they were shorthanded at some point, and they knew that I was interested in a lot of different things. And I handled at the time, I was high up in sales and marketing, and I was handling all of the clubs and the bars because I knew everybody. So it's all the bars, all the clubs, all the music stores, and stuff like that, and the music companies, the labels. So they would all be dealing with me. But they also knew that I was into other things. They knew that I liked to do photography. They knew I liked to do writing. But
Hmm.
they said to me, hey, Bill Jensen, so one of the writers, was going to go and do a story on wrestling, and basically they were shorthanded. They didn't have a photographer to go. Do I think I could go with him? I'm like, sure, why not? So, I was like, I'm going to get paid. I'm going to go see some wrestling, or some wrestlers. We'll see what happens, So
Hmm.
we went down, and I got the opportunity. I met a lot of people who wound up becoming my friends later on in my career. But like I met Tammy Sitch, which was Sunny, and
Hmm.
Bam Bam Bigelow, rest in peace, and Bret Hart and Iron Sheik, and the boys from Demolition.
Hmm.
And just to give you an idea, later on in life, I became an honorary Demolition member because I
Hmm.
I, I tagged up with Demolition Blast, who worked with Axe for many, many years.
Okay.
Bam Bam was a friend of mine. What do you call it? And what do you call it? And then we got to Shiki. And Iron Sheik saw, after we had the conversation, I took the pictures. Shiki says to me, he looks at me, goes, "You look like you could be a wrestler. I train you to be a wrestler," and blah blah blah. And I'm okay, all right, this is
Mm.
interesting. So I had never thought of being a wrestler at that point. So
Hmm.
um, so the transition from music to wrestling, the
Hmm.
music, I was already teetering and deciding that I was going to be done for a while and taking
Hmm.
a break.
Right.
I was out of a band. I didn't want to be in another band right then. I just wanted to kind of be me. And then I slipped into being Brimstone by accident. So what do you call it? So I wound up going and what do you call it, and having this conversation with Sheik. And Sheiky is kind of what we call in the industry working me, and and just trying to get me to decide, oh yeah, I'd love to train. And
Hmm.
so his agent at the time, Snapshot Eric Sims is what we call him. He represents a bunch of the guys, and he started working me, and he's like, well, you can come here, go to Atlanta, and Shiki could train you out there, and blah blah
Hmm.
blah, and it would be this much, but if he comes here, then it would be this much. And blah, blah. I'm like, whoa, hold on a minute. It's like, slow down, slow down. I'm not ready for all that. And
Hmm.
what do you call it? Over while I was doing that, Bret Hart was getting ready to leave. I'm pretty sure at the time he was heading out to had to be with WCW at the time.
Hmm.
I gotta believe. And he said to me, he said, hey, look, if you're really interested in getting into the business, here's my email address, because he knew that I was there with the publication. He knew I wasn't just a fan, hanging out.
Right.
But he gave me the email, and he said, look, if you have any questions, shoot me an email, and I'll see what I can do about helping you and answering the questions. I appreciated that, and I thanked him. And I put the email away, and that was that. And a few months later, I was sitting reading a wrestling publication, and I think it was in Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and a new school was opening up in Queens, and I'm like, let me take a look. It's the Doghouse, and it's like, all right, well, let me go check it out. And I went over there, and Sure enough, I started training over at the Doghouse in Queens, New York. Then they moved over to Brooklyn, New York. And, I was one of the Doghouse originals. I contacted Brett. I asked him, what do you think of this? This is all. He gave me the things to look out for. Everything seemed legit. He's like, go for it. And that was the end of that. I hadn't spoken to Brett anytime after that until a few years ago. I actually bumped into him at a convention. And the two of us, not even at the convention, we were at the hotel afterwards. And he was with Hall and Nash, and I went to say hello to Hall and Nash, and Brett and I, had a conversation, and I thanked him for helping me get into the industry, which of course he didn't remember, but at the end of the day, didn't make a difference. I didn't care, I'd still show respect because without him saying what he did and without Shiki doing what he did, I wouldn't be where I am today in terms of having been in the wrestling industry, having built out my name.
Mhm.
So that being said, the Doghouse, which was also the LIWF, the Long Island Wrestling Federation,
Mhm.
we're talking about major league breakout players that came from the Doghouse. I mean, you're talking Homicide, Low Key, Jay Lethal. Jay Lethal was just in the tag match for Ric Flair's last match. What
Right.
was it, this past week?
Mhm.
Oh my God, the SAT, Red, oh my God, Papa Don, myself, what do you call it? So many people that came out of that school that the names of. And if you're in the
Mhm.
wrestling industry or you watch wrestling, the names of. And everybody kind of did lots of big things. And that school did a lot for a lot of people. So and it got people off the streets because you had a lot of kids that had gone there that were, they just they had nowhere else to go.
Right.
Grim Reefer. I mean, lots of people, lots of players.
Mm. Wow. Okay. That is interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Yeah.
Hope I'm making sense. I'm just trying to go through everything here. So
No, no, you are. You are. No, I'm glad you. It sounded like you enjoyed your time as a wrestler, and I got why you said you wanted to do it because you were in the midst of a transition because well you wanted to find out more about who you were, and yeah, you did something that you love, which you still love to this day,
Mhm.
but you wanted to find another lane. I understand that, and wrestling
Oh
seemed
yeah,
to be that other lane at that time, which
at
presented
that time.
itself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not in the ring anymore, and my body
Right.
thanks me for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
I'm sure it
yeah,
does.
my body thanks me for it. But I do so many other things. I just don't even have the time. Even if I wanted to get into the ring, I don't have the time to stay in ring shape.
Yeah.
I'm a shape. I'm round. That's not a good shape to be in.
Oh man. You are too much. Oh my gosh. Well, we we definitely have ascended to new heights here. I appreciate that. Oh my. Well, former wrestler, author, uh, entrepreneur, radio personality, actor, and voice actor, amongst other things. Brimstone joins me here on Revelations. He's opened the way. We have taken the flight into new heights with Ascension. I think now it is time for us to get behind the purpose. Now, with behind the purpose, this is the reason why we function the way we do. And obviously, he has mentioned some of those things, being a wrestler and being a musician. Those are two of those facets. But you also are in the radio game. So, why, how, and why did you create the Grindhouse Radio?
So my whole career, everything is more or less next natural progression. I believe in the next natural progression of everything I do. So
Mhm.
with the pro wrestling, the next natural progression was, what are superheroes? What are wrestlers? They're superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
They're larger than life characters. So why not take that superhero and take them out of the ring and make the comic book? From the
Right.
comic book, what do you call it? The Brimstone and the Borderhounds comic. What's the next natural progression? Well, animation and kids books and toys and X, Y, and Z. You see what I'm saying? So the
Mm-hmm.
next natural progression was that. Then when I started going on the road to promote the comics and the kids books and all that, I started touring again, and I wanted to see, rather than touring and not seeing anything again, like I did earlier in my life with the wrestling and with the music.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to start seeing the cities that I was going to. So, we started doing a show called Food Hound Tidbits while I was on tour. So
Mm-hmm.
Food Hounds, allowed me to get out there and see lots of things. So now the next natural progression for Food Hounds was, what do you call it? Sauces and seasonings and so forth, and coffee line. And you see what I mean? Now all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff also wound up going into the comic book. Trust me, I'm getting to your question.
Mm-hmm.
What do you call it? So all that stuff wound up being in the comic, and everything that you can buy in real life is also in the comic, and vice versa. So this way it's all kind of next natural progression type of stuff. Now, with all of that said, and me being
Mm-hmm.
away and on the road quite often,
Mm-hmm.
I missed a lot of my kids growing up, and being
Right.
away from my wife is never fun.
Right.
I never sleep well. I never do well when I'm away from home for more than a couple of days. I'm just, it's not comfortable for me because I've been with my wife for 20 years. So
Right.
that being said, I had always loved to I love to talk. I've always had an interest in radio, just like I have interest in TV and film and all that other stuff. And I'm the
Mm-hmm.
kind of guy that if I want to do something, I'm going to do it,
Right.
and I will do the best I can to make it into a success. That being said, I had been interviewed hundreds of times on
Mm-hmm.
all the local, networks, and we're talking about every single one of them. They all know me. They all know me well. And I figured, you know what? I'd like to spend more time at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I came up with this idea. I know a lot of people. I can talk. I know, how to get people on air that nobody else is going to get because of my friendships with them. I said I can pitch a really cool show to
Mm-hmm.
all these networks, and we'll see what happens. So maybe that'll keep me home.
Right.
And maybe I can tour a little less. So
Mm-hmm.
I wound up going. I reached out to everybody I knew. Crickets,
Oh
Cole.
no.
Crickets. All I got was crickets.
Oh
I
man.
was like, okay, fair enough. So whenever I'm told no or a door is closed, that makes me take 2 steps back, and then I take 10 steps forward. And I will never take no for an answer. So if you're not going to do it for me, you're not going to work with me, I'll just do it myself, and I'm going to do it better. So
Mm-hmm.
that being said, I had the idea, the Grindhouse Radio. Why the Grindhouse Radio? Because I'm always working, always on the grind, always making things
Mm-hmm.
happen. Grindhouse also has to do a little bit with horror, even though this is not a horror show whatsoever.
Right.
What do you call it? The Brimstone character has a history in that genre.
Mm-hmm.
What do you call it? I also did horror modeling. Remember, I said everything fits into each other. Now, what
Mm-hmm.
do you call it? I started to and also one of my seasonings is the
Mm-hmm.
Grindhouse seasoning. So
Mm-hmm.
so like I said, everything was tied together.
Right.
So that being said, the Grindhouse seasonings and the comics and everything worked together. So the Grindhouse Radio was the idea. I bought the IP. I made sure that I had all the stuff that was needed to do it. And like I said, that was the first womp womp, and didn't get
Mm-hmm.
that. And then I had conversations with a couple of people and some internet radio people. And when I say some people are really shady and to steer clear,
Mm-hmm.
some people are really shady, you need to steer clear. So I steered
Mm-hmm.
clear. And what do you call it? I wound up saying, okay, I'm just going to put this on the shelf for right now, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, even though you have a really big love for something, even though you want to put everything you have into the things that you want to see uh happen in this world, it
Mm-hmm.
might not be the right time. You know what I mean? It might
Yeah.
not be today, might not be tomorrow, but another
Mm-hmm.
year from now, it's the right time.
Right.
So that's why you have to be patient. Things don't happen right away. Things you can't have immediate gratification all the time, even though the kids today don't realize that. The fact
You're
is
correct.
that so the fact is I took it and I put it on the shelf, even though I had everything, and I waited. About a year later, not even, I wound up getting a couple of interns that came in and started working with me because I opened up Hound Comics Inc. Hound Entertainment Group. I had my corporate offices and I had my showroom, and so they were working for me, and and they had a radio background. They did it
Hmm.
in school and so forth. I was like, hey, what would you think about maybe doing a show together? And they were like, sounds interesting, why not, let's have a conversation. So one day after hours, we sat around a microphone in the middle of the office with an empty desk where everybody was already out. We were on a main road, you heard the cars whizzing by outside. It was a very interesting situation, but the hour went by and we go, all right, this is something. And the Grindhouse Radio was born, brother. We were an hour show for the first 6 to 8 months, and then iHeart at the time didn't just have anybody on iHeart. iHeart called us and recruited us, and we were
Hmm.
featured on iHeart, and and that's when we went to a 2 hour show.
Hmm.
And about another 6 months after that, I started dealing with the people that wanted to start sponsoring and advertising with us, and
Right.
and the rest is history. So the Grindhouse Radio was born, and since then,
Hmm.
just to, if you want to, if I can remind you, I said that what am I going to do if you don't want to help me do it? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it better.
You can do
So
better.
for 4 years straight, we won best radio station on Long Island for 4 years straight over all the terrestrial radio stations. We're a
Mm.
2 hour show once a week, a podcast. So what do you call it? We beat all of them. Not that they're not good, but we just a little bit better.
Mm.
Yeah,
I love that. I love the fact that when you do something, you want to be the best at it. I like
yeah.
that.
You know,
I like that.
at least try. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
or at
I
least
don't.
attempt to do it. Yeah.
At least but do it the right way.
Hmm.
And if you're going to do something, aside from, first of all, if you can do something, do it right.
Of course.
Second of all, be committed. Three,
Right.
give back. You know what I mean? Give
Mm.
back to the community in every which way possible. Give back to the community that you're involved in terms of, if you're a podcaster, give back to the podcast community. Musician,
Hmm.
give back to the music community. An actor, give back to the acting community. But also on the humanity side, the community itself, help those, what do you call, the people that are less fortunate. Be a part of charities, go and spend some time, show some love, give a little bit of yourself to them. I'm not saying go give them money. You don't have
Right.
money to give them a little bit of time is money. People
Mhm.
will appreciate that. I've been, and not that I needed the honor, but I mean, we got a 2020 New York State Senate Award from Senator Kevin Thomas,
Mhm.
who's now a good friend of mine. After over the years, we've gotten to know each other, and it was for the contributions that we made in the community when
Mhm.
COVID hit. I said we need to do something. I heard that the local food pantries were out, and they were having a problem. You've got these kids, especially the families that have kids that are in school that rely on school meals to feed, you know what I mean, their
Mhm.
kids, and to make sure they have a balanced meal. And I said, we can't, the schools are shut down. We can't let these kids go hungry. We can't let people go hungry. So between the Grindhouse Radio, and then I contacted my people over at Walmart, and so forth. And I was like, hey, I need to get some things together. And everybody jumped to it. We did a nice chunk of money that was put down, and I went there personally and I did all the shopping for them and delivered all the food and supplies.
Mm.
So when I say give back, give
Mhm.
back. You know what I mean? Time, effort. It's all about giving back. And you know what? Not only are you doing good for someone else, you're gonna feel good about it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mhm.
And I don't do it to get an award. I didn't do it to get nobody knew. I didn't call the news. I didn't call, other people go, oh, look, I just gave a check for this much money. But yeah, all right, well, that's very nice. Obviously we know what you're looking for. There were no news, there was no nothing. The only thing I did was I did on my Instagram, I posted a couple of pictures and a video, and I said, I want to try to urge all of you to go out and do the same type of a thing. Please go out there and help other people. And that was the
Hmm.
message I wanted. Not pat me on the back for doing this. That's not what I want. I want you to go out and do it too. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I
So
totally know what you mean.
so that's why the grindhouse was born. That's how I did it. And that's where, kind of where I am right now. I do the grindhouse. I do all the business for the grindhouse. I
Hmm.
have my partners, and we do our thing, every week. And we have some of the biggest names in the industry on, and 95% of them I'm honored to call my friends that if they jump on the show, not just because we have a big audience, but because they are a friend of mine. You know what I mean? And they trust
Yeah,
me. So
yeah, yeah, and yeah, that is key. To I love the fact you stress not just only give back to the community at large, but also give back to the community in which you belong.
absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. No matter where I am, no matter what I do, I always try to give back to charity.
Hmm.
If it's not money, it's most of the time.
Hmm.
I'll give my time. I'll go the what do you call it? The UCP, United Cerebral Palsy Foundation. I
Hmm.
mean, I at one point I just did a thing for them about 2 weeks ago. But
Hmm.
back when you were allowed to go into places and do things,
Right.
they asked me if I'd come down and see the students. I said, "How many students you have?" Oh, we have
Hmm.
about like 100 and something students. And I was like, okay, how many kids? About 100 and whatever it was. And they said, okay. So I called up my friends at Build a Bear and I said, I need you to send me 100 and something bears, and
Yeah.
I'm going to go and deliver them hand by hand to these kids at the UCP. And we went, and nothing is better than having seen those kids' faces. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Smiling and thrilled to get something, and you know what I mean. Forget
Yeah.
about just meeting me, but they were getting these Build-A-Bears, and just it's about giving back, man. It's about giving
Hmm.
back. People don't understand that, and that's what separates I hate to say the men from the boys, and the women from the girls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's what it is. Doing the right thing, knowing what the right thing is, and doing it. There are a lot of people in the industry that um, they don't do the right thing. They don't want to do the right thing. They forget where they came from. They forget that these are the people that helped put them where they are, and then
Hmm.
they don't do charitable things. They don't go and visit hospitals. They don't go and meet kids. They don't do the things that people should be doing when you're in a public figure position. And I'm not trying to preach, but I'm preaching. You know what I mean? I do as I do what I preach. You know what I mean? I
Hmm.
practice what I preach. And by the way, I just want to clarify to everybody, and just so you're aware, it's been a very rough week for me, and that's why I'm off. And I didn't tell you beforehand. I lost a good friend of mine this past week. What do you call it? I'm sure you're all familiar. You're probably familiar with Nichelle Nichols from Star Trek, and
Yes.
and she was a very close friend of mine and very dear friend, and she passed at the beginning of the week. And I have not had really good sleep, and I have been very, very, cloudy because of it. So I do want to apologize for not being as clear and concise as I normally would be. It's just been a really, really rough week. So I do apologize for that.
It's okay, man. I mean, we all go through some rough times. It all that matters is that you honor the memory of your friend. And yes, I do know and am still a big fan of Nichelle Nichols for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of the grindhouse is why I thought of that again, and it's just so I'm feeling it because when before we even did our first episode, there were a few people that I reached out to when I'd see them at the conventions, or
Hmm.
I'd call them up and I'd say, "Can you do me a favor?" And Nichelle, Stanley, and DMC, a few of these people, I asked them, I said, "Hey, would you give me like drops and so forth, and station IDs? Because I'm putting this thing together." And they said to me, "Whatever you need, because if you're going to be involved in it, we have no doubt that it's going to be amazing." And that is why, to this day, after 7 years, that they're still in the intro to the show. And
Mm,
every show that I hear, and because we listen to the intro at the beginning of every show,
mhm,
and Nichelle is the second to last, and Stan is the last voice you hear before you come into the show. So
mm.
it just brings a tear to my eye. And I just wanted to make sure that and I should have prefaced it at the beginning. I should have let you know, but I figured I would be able to get through this without being off. But I'm being real with you. I'm just a little feeling it right now. And that's where I'm at. My head's a little cloudy from it. But I apologize. And I hope I'm not ruining the show by telling
No, 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 not at all, man.
you.
No, not at all. Well, from one person that now you're carrying the torch of in memory of as a dear friend of yours to another, and you've mentioned that Charity is really close to you,
Mm.
and you mentioned how close Stan Lee was to you. So, what does being the spokesperson for the Stanley Foundation mean to you?
That's a fantastic question and a fantastic thing. When I was asked to do it, we're talking about wow, 10 years, if not longer ago. Because I was doing all the conventions and I was touring all the time. And Stan knew it, his people knew it. And they knew that, I was already doing Kids Day and so forth with the Border Pups with my kids' book. And I would always do some special things. And they knew that I knew to how to handle myself in front of children, and I had a good rapport with everybody who I had been in contact with. So they asked me if I would take that on, and it was a huge honor for me, to be asked to take that on. And I wear it as a badge of honor and with pride, and I get to kind of keep Stan's name alive, even though it's more than alive through Marvel. But
Hmm.
being able and POW Entertainment, but I'm able to I still do, whenever I have the opportunity and whenever I'm asked, I do, different things in libraries and schools and so forth about literacy in children, and just, talking to people about how important it is for kids to, have the opportunity to read, uh, you know, um, through comics, through graphic novels, that's just as good as picking up, a regular novel. You know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
it's visually stimulating. It gets the mind going. And hell, if a kid is going to read something, if a kid is a reluctant reader and they're not going to read, your Huck Finn or whatever the hell else people are reading in school nowadays. I don't even know if
Hmm.
that's being read in school nowadays. But if the Outsiders always was one of the ones that was being read, and stuff like that, because kids, they get lost easy, and they're not interested in just reading a book. You can get them reading, and get them reading through, trade paperbacks and comics and so forth. And the visual literacy, is very important for slow readers as well.
Hmm.
It helps them, learn what, different things here. Like if something is smelly, what's usually around it? A
Hmm.
fly. If something's hot, is a little wavy heat sign. Different things that it's good for these kids to learn, because they're in need of that kind of an education. So there are different things and different. It's been a minute since I've done one, but it's always an honor and a privilege to go and speak to people about it. And a lot of the time, I was speaking to a lot of mothers, um, who didn't know how to get their kids to read, and they didn't want them to read comic books. And I said to them, "But why?" "Well, because I want them to learn how to read." I said, "But well, isn't comic
Yeah.
books a form of reading? Can't you read a comic book?" "Well, yeah, but there are pictures." "Well, that's visual literacy." I
Right.
said, it's very important for these kids to understand this type of a thing.
Hmm.
Just in general, I mean, if they're not a reader and they're not reading things, you want to get them interested in something, don't you? Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, why don't you pick up a comic book? Let them read a comic book, and let them learn how to follow the panels. You know what I mean? That in itself
Right.
sometimes is difficult. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
If you're a comic reader, you get what I'm saying. So it was a very interesting thing to be a part of, and I did it for a long time, and I incorporated it into everywhere I went, because I was always asked, "Can you do it?" So I did it with a lot of the Wizard World events when Wizard was huge. I did it at New York Comic Con. I did it at Kamikaze. I did it at all the libraries around the New York and Jersey area. A bunch of the schools. It was a wonderful thing, and just
Mhm.
having that legacy of Stan is, being a part of me is just that's why I just embrace it because I miss him.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Wow. Well, you definitely told us all your purpose here, and man, I totally appreciate it. Man, wow. Actor, voiceover actor, former wrestler, and serial entrepreneur, along with radio personality and CEO of the Grindhouse Radio. Brimstone joins me here on Revelations. He has opened the way. He has taken that flight in ascension. He has given us the reason why he is the way he is, and now it is time to bring it all to light. Now, all of us shine in a unique way, and obviously, you, sir, shine in a unique way yourself. Now, you have so many business interests. It is crazy to think of and conceive. You have interests in food, in gaming, in toys, and you've mentioned you're in you're in radio as well, along with other ventures as well. What businesses would you avoid becoming an owner or a partial owner of in any form?
Uh, I mean, I, I don't know. I kind of done a little bit of everything. There's not necessarily. All right, one thing that I wouldn't do anything drug related.
Mm,
Even I would no, probably wouldn't even do anything that's legal, but nothing drug related. I'm not into the whole weed thing. No
mhm,
offense to the people that are. I mean, you're more than welcome to do whatever you want to do
mhm,
with your own bodies. It's just not something I'm into.
mhm,
I don't support any of the CBD stuff, whether it's amazing for people or not. I just don't do it.
mhm,
I've been asked countless times to do, some kind of CBD oils and I can't do it. It's not something that I want to support. I've done a little bit of everything. I even had a novelty item in the adult industry. I mean, that was my
mhm,
one of my first products. You know what I mean? So,
mhm,
um, yeah, I mean, I would do pretty much almost anything that's legal and fun.
mhm.
So,
Yeah.
if it's going to be something that's fun and interesting and people will enjoy and I'll enjoy bringing into the universe, then let's do it. The things that are problems, that's a different animal. Like, I listen, and I don't want to get political. Like I do like guns. I am a gun
Mhm,
person.
mhm,
I do not have a license, so I do not have certain things. But one thing that I wouldn't want to do is put my name on a gun. Not in the what's going on in the world right now.
yeah.
That's it, man. I mean, what else can I say? Like
Mhm,
everything else is kind of I don't know. I don't want to get political. So, because I was gonna say, what I'll say. If you don't like it, you cut it out. But what do you call it? Like I would be the first person to throw my name on the morning after pill to help all the women all around the world, all around the country, who are having issues with this Roe versus Wade deal. I believe that it's a woman's right to be able to do with her body whatever she damn well pleases, you know, and that's that. So
mhm,
I support, and I will do whatever it is that I need to do to put the right things out into the world.
yeah.
Things that I wouldn't do. I mean, it's very small, very
Mhm,
small. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah.
And I wouldn't put out one of the recorders. F the recorders. No recorders with the Brimstone name will ever happen. Watch this tomorrow. I'm gonna get something in my inbox going, hey, would you like to do a recorder with your comic book photo on it or something? No, I don't. I do not. I do
Oh
not.
no.
But
Oh Lord. No. Note to self: no
no
recorders
recorders.
for
No
Brimstone.
recorders.
Oh gosh, that is funny.
My wife Danielle and I were literally walking into one of the Skechers stores, no free ads, this past weekend. And as we were walking out, there was a Five Below or one of those like dollar store type places
Mhm,
next to it. And these three teenagers walk out. You know they were doing a TikTok or something,
mhm.
playing freaking recorders through the store like little Pied Pipers. I'm going, somebody needs to take these things away from these kids. And I started making a beeline. My wife said, no. No recorders. No recorders. Anyway,
That is hilarious. Oh, all right. So I got businesses that you would not want to indulge in. Well, let me talk about a couple that you are indulged in,
sure.
which you would think it would be opposing one another. So you have interests in horror,
Hmm.
yet you also write children's books.
Hmm.
Uh, how do you properly and successfully tap into each of those creative sides?
Well, they're all different genres, and at the end of the day, you know, one, you study the genre. Two, you study what you're going to do before you do it. You should be a student of whatever lessons you want to teach. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Because you can't never become a teacher until you're a student, and you never stop being a student. So you always want to build, you want to grow, you want to learn. Whatever you are, you're getting involved in and engaging yourself in. And in terms of horror, I mean, the Brimstone of the Borderhounds book, like the comic, isn't it's horror, sci-fi, religion, but it's not religion like in a bad way, or a good way. It's just comic book stuff.
Right.
And what do you call it? It's just everything kind of mashed up all in one. And yeah, it does have the horror side to it. And the fact of the matter is there are a lot of people that read the comic that also have children. And one thing that I always found awesome in with my kids growing up is that we could share characters that are iconic like the Hulk, Spider-Man, Captain America, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. You know what I mean? We know
Hmm.
these names. We love these names.
Hmm.
Well, for the readers of the Brimstone of the Borderhounds, comic book, I wanted the parents that were reading the comic to be able to vibe with the same characters that the kids were reading. You know what I'm saying? Because
Hmm.
you want to see and you think, as the kids' books, what are you thinking? Bernstein Bears, Clifford. You know what I mean? Things like that, the big red dog, and stuff like that. Why not have the kids' book that is shaped just like and familiar, as the Bernstein Bears, and I did that on purpose to make sure
Hmm.
it was the same size, so it fits in their hands the same way the other books do,
Hmm.
and very familiar. And they can now vibe with the same characters that their parents do, and they can say, "Oh, little Brim did this, but we're learning a lesson." You know what I mean? And blah blah
Yeah.
blah, and now it all kind of works together. Now the other side of all of that, now and
Hmm.
that's why I'm able to do both in that scenario.
Right.
Now here's the other thing: guy like The Rock, okay,
Hmm.
guy like The Rock, he does stuff where he's foul mouthed, and he does stuff where he's on Disney. You know what I
That's
mean?
right. That's right.
So you there's a separation there. Just because there's you can have an audience that kind of comes in and out of everything, as long as you are a responsible person and a responsible human being when you're offset and off camera. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel that you can vibe with different audiences. So
Hmm.
yes, I can go and do a horror convention. I can also go and do a kids convention. I can also go do a wrestling convention. I could
Hmm.
also go do a sporting event. You know what I'm saying? Like you could do different things
Right.
and kind of mesh
Hmm.
nicely in and out of all of these different genres. I have always enjoyed working that fine line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the fact is why not do it? And there are some people based on my name alone or
Hmm.
my look alone,
Of
which
course.
is which is disgusting that you're still thinking about that nowadays. But there are people that say, oh well, we're gonna pass, or no, we're not interested. That you wouldn't even want to know how many people just on where we met,
Hmm.
who pass on me based on how I look without even bothering to look at my resume. You know what I mean? Or to see who they're talking to. So you'd rather not have a name on your show who has the experience, who can give you stories,
Hmm.
because you think that am some kind of monster because I have long hair and a beard, you know, and earrings, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I go by the name Brimstone. Oh my
Right.
goodness. Well, it's okay. You know what I mean? I'm a nice guy in real life.
Hmm.
And the fact is that, people judge a book by its cover. There was one
Hmm.
show that I met there that said no. And usually when they do something like that, I'll always send them back, hey, just want to make sure you had an opportunity to look and see who I am and what I've accomplished and done just before you make a decision, and that you weren't just basing it off my name and the way I look.
Right.
And some people will obviously not respond because they're like, oh, well, excuse
Yeah.
me,
Hmm.
but there was a couple that do, and some of them go, you're right, and we looked into it and we're so sorry. And one
Hmm.
of them apologized to me and then asked me if I would still do the show, and I said sure. And I
Hmm.
went on. Not only did they love the show that I was on, but they
Hmm.
apologized to me on air and said, we're
Nice.
sorry that we made this crack judgment on you based on your name and your appearance. I was like, well, I
Hmm.
appreciate that. But it is very, very sad that in this day and age, and we see what's happening in the media and in the world,
Hmm.
and especially in this country, and what do you call it? And you see things that are like we're rolling backwards rather than moving forwards,
Yeah.
and it's just nauseating.
Hmm.
And the fact of the matter is that people need to stop judging books by the covers. Just like I said earlier, you shouldn't be seeing color. You should just be seeing people. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? You shouldn't be seeing, based on long hair and piercings, and a
Hmm.
beard, that I'm
Hmm.
some kind of, Satanist.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because you don't know who somebody is until you have a conversation with them. So,
Exactly.
that's what it is. And so I love, walking that fine line, and having fun with it, and just enjoying life, man. You know what I mean? You got to enjoy it, enjoy
Hmm.
life. So anyway,
Oh yeah, definitely. And well, I guess you blew up my criteria because
why?
I
What was it? What was it?
which is I look at something and it's like, okay, let me see the bio because I want to see what is intriguing about this person and if I can get inspiration from him or her. So when I was seeing that you had so many different interests, none of them that would happen to have me say, okay, I can't have this guy here, but all saying, okay, I see the window dressing, but God, this bio is really interesting. I want to know more about this guy. That's what happened.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And that's the thing, like people are just people are people, and they're brought up the way they're brought up, and you can
Hmm.
tell, you know what I mean? You can tell who has who's been brought up right and who hasn't,
Yeah.
and that is what it is. I can talk about pretty much anything when my mind is
Hmm.
on the right place, like,
Right.
but I can hit any different genre you want to talk about. It's just a matter of, and I've been there and I've done it and I've
Hmm.
experienced it and I've worked through it and I've
Hmm.
succeeded in it,
Yeah.
and but again, people again, they just, it's just the way people are,
Yeah.
and it's a sad thing.
Hmm.
The best thing that can happen is we, as we as people who put out media and so forth, on a regular basis, try to change that mode of thinking. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's
Yeah.
more like people like you and you and I together,
Hmm.
and saying, look, these guys are having a great conversation. We never knew each other before we got on, had a
Right.
great conversation. We're sitting and learning about, well, this time we're learning about me, maybe next time we're learning about you, but
Exactly.
but at the end of the day, we're having a back and forth conversation, and it's just a learning process, and that's what life is. It's a learning process. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And
Yeah.
you can't judge people by what they look like,
Yeah.
and you also can't judge people by their bio. you know
Exactly.
there are plenty of people that their bio is fantastic, but they have
Hmm.
no personality whatsoever.
Hmm.
I can tell you off air, a friend of mine who is done, he's a legend in entertainment, and I will tell you off air when we're just remind me,
Okay.
what do you call it, and he came on the show, he came on Grindhouse, and I gotta tell you, I thought it was going to be an unbelievable conversation, somebody who I've had many conversations with
Hmm.
off air, and all around the country,
Hmm.
and what do you call it, and the worst the worst conversation ever, the worst
Oh
interview
no.
ever. It was awful, absolute
Oh.
dog crap. And so based you can't,
Oh.
again, you can't base a
Mm-mm.
personality off of a resume.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So, again, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, I love, listen, at this point in my career, I don't need to go out and do, podcasts and this and then that, like, I do it because one, I enjoy trying to keep my chops fresh. Two, I like to meet new people. I like to meet interesting people who are
Hmm.
doing fun things and putting out their stuff out into the world and into the
Hmm.
ether.
Yeah.
Three, I enjoy, what do you call it, having the opportunity to give certain people an opportunity who didn't have that shot before. You know what I mean? Because somebody
Right.
gave me a shot,
Hmm.
before I had any kind of clout. So why shouldn't I give somebody else the opportunity, to
Right.
have me on, that it might do something for their show or
Right.
their, article or whatever it is.
Hmm.
So I don't care how big I am or how big I get. I will always be that way. Now, of course, there are certain limits that you can go and you can only
Of
do with so
course.
many people.
Of course.
But you know what I mean? At the end of the day, like, that's the way you should be,
Hmm.
that's the way you should be. You should be giving and give and give and give. And it's the takers that you got to worry about.
Ooh. Now that's a nugget. That is a
Mhm.
nugget right there. And yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. You can have things that are interesting, but if you don't have charisma or personality, it will belie the bio as well. So yeah, I've been there in that situation.
Yeah.
Wow. Mm-mm-mm.
How difficult is it being, now look, I talk way too much, but how difficult is it when you're sitting across from somebody and they give you 2 3 word answers, or they're
Oh,
just dull as sin, and there's no reason why bother listening or watching, it
right.
doesn't and you're maybe you just don't align,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
it just you can't judge. You have to do your research. So when
Yes.
people, if people anybody out there, if you're creating, if you are a creator, if you're trying to put out any kind of media and you're looking to speak with people and meet people and have do interviews and so forth, I suggest to make sure you do the research on somebody before you say, I'm not interested. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You could have the next Justin Bieber coming on.
That's right.
You could have the next Brad Pitt. You never know
Hmm.
what's going to happen. So
Yeah.
you need to do your due diligence before, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. Yeah. It is. All right. So you have all of these things that you have done and that you are uh, actor, voice actor, owner, radio personality, author, wrestler, well, now former wrestler, among so many other interests. Which one of those are you most proud to have achieved?
What do you call it? My biggest achievement is
Hmm.
my family, my kids, my wife. That's my biggest achievement. Everything else is just, topping on the cake. You know what I mean? Or on the
Hmm.
ice cream. You know what I mean? Like, I do it all for my family, and some of it is my ego. Some of it, but but I do it for my family because I want to leave a legacy for my family, that even when after I'm gone, they'll be able to look back and go, you know what, our dad was awesome, and he did so much, not just for himself, not just for us, but for other people. I want my wife to be able to go to bed with me at night being proud of me, knowing that I did everything in my power to make sure that our family was taken care of. And for my fans, I want to make sure to leave a legacy that they're going to love and respect and appreciate, and that's that, man. Everything else, you know what? I loved music. I stopped doing music, not because I didn't love it, just because, I did what I had to do there. And yeah, I can always go back, but
Mhm.
same thing with wrestling, and the voice work and the radio, you never know. Maybe one day that'll stop too. Who knows? But at the end of the day, I could always pick it back up and enjoy it for what it is. And I don't love any one more than the other. Each one has its own je ne sais quoi to it. You know what I mean? Like wrestling and the drumming. I loved the fact that I was being able to be physical. I loved the physical aspects of it. I loved the charisma and the attitude and like the drive to be in the ring or behind the drum kit, and in front of a crowd of thousands of people, you know what I mean? Up and down to a crowd of 50 people, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
just vibing off other people. But I get that same vibe when I'm doing this with you. I'm working off your energy. And
Right.
when I'm doing the grindhouse and or my dirty little secrets club I do with Dana, what do you call it, which is another great show. And I do with Alex, I do with Brimstone. And it's
Mhm.
it's the energy I get from the other people is
Right.
similar, even though it's a smaller grouping of people or a
Mhm.
one-on-one type of position. It's the same energy, just slightly different than I did when I was wrestling, and you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah. Mhm.
you're just working with, so for everything is great, but the answer to your question is
Mhm.
family is, my biggest accomplishment.
You couldn't have nailed that any better.
Oh, thank you. I
Perfect,
appreciate it.
perfect, perfect. Yes. And I agree. That is your biggest achievement
Thank you.
by far.
Although
Wow.
you don't know my kids. They're a little bit of a thing. No, I'm I'm just
Oh
messing
Lord.
with you. I have
Oh
great
man.
kids. My oldest just turned 25. My middle one just turned 21, and
Mhm.
my little one is about to be 11. So yeah, so I've got
Nice.
them spread out, and and they're fantastic. I love my kids, and
That's awesome.
my son and I are doing some stuff together, in the business, and then my what do you call it, and my little one is
Mhm.
actually right now we're just waiting on the company to get the funding in, but she's already set to do a couple of different voice character voices for a
Mhm.
video game that I'm doing a main character in. So, and she got it on
Mhm.
her own. She didn't want me to just get it for her. She wanted to audition for it and do it, and she's done a couple of little commercials. So she comes in and uses my studio. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, so it's fun. It's fun. And by the way, and none of them give a crap that I'm Brimstone. They don't care. They don't care who daddy is and who daddy knows. Is
Right.
that they've grown up with it.
Right.
And what's really funny is that my daughter, my older daughter, so she's a teacher. She's a teacher upstate, and
Mhm.
what do you call it? Little story, real quick.
Mhm.
And she calls me about a month or so ago, and she goes, "Yeah, the craziest thing in school happened." And she goes, my I was sitting in the teachers' lounge, and the one of the teachers comes in, and they say to me, they goes, um. What your father used to do? What your father did? She's like, why? Why you asking? She goes, was he a wrestler? And she's like, yeah. And they're looking at, and everybody goes, you didn't say. Does he go under the name Brimstone? Yeah, you're Brimstone's daughter, and you didn't even say anything about it. And we've been working with you for X amount of years, and you didn't even think to say. And she's like, no. But the thing is the way that they were raised right is because back when I used to be like, oh, do you want me to get tickets for the kids? Do you want to do something? What do you want to meet? XYZ? I go, no, Dad. We want people to like us for who we are,
We are.
not for
Mhm.
who you are. And I respect. There we go. So not until later on did people know, if they weren't a fan of what I was doing, prior,
Mhm.
they found out over the years, just me doing things with the school and so forth, and whatever. And I was class parent, you know. I did
Mm.
lots of things, man, because I care about and I love my kids, and it doesn't matter how big
Nice.
I am or how big I get, I'd still do it. I'll do it for my grandkids. I don't give a damn. I'll still be doing it. So,
Awesome.
because again, family is everything.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, I totally agree with that. Wow. Wow. Yeah, you keep shining, my man. That's all I could say. Keep on shining. Wow. Author, voice over actor, serial entrepreneur, but most of all, and most importantly, husband and father. Brimstone joins me on Revelations. And now we come to the time and the part of the show we call plug tuning. And I think my man knows where that comes from. And this is where we have our guest, him or her, in this case, him, get to actually plug whatever they want. So they can promote whatever they want without any interruption from me. So, Brimstone, the floor is yours.
Well, I mean, the best place to find out anything about me is my official website, therealbrimstone.com. If you, what do you call it? So you go there, you can find all my social media, everything about me, pretty much almost everything that I do and have done is up there. Not everything, but a lot of information is there. The place I spend the most time on social media is Instagram at the real brimstone. It's verified. You'll know it's me. What do you call it? If you go to any of your social media that uses GIFs, if you use at GHR or put in Brimstone, 95% of the time you're going to get me. So what do you call it? So you can use me in your GIFs, and always feel free to tag me if you do. I love to see it. And yeah, man, what do you call it? Catch me on the Grindhouse Radio, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every single Thursday night. It's when the new episodes drop. Tuesdays is a big day because Within Brim Skin is always out, and also, what do you call it? Dirty Little Secrets Club comes out, and that's a little bit more of a risque show. Dirty Little Secrets Club, and Within Brim Skin, I'm a little bit more of a mouthier cat. So just beware before you tune into those things.
Mm. Well, we will have all of that information in show notes and in the content area as well. And we're so thankful that we had you on the show, man. Author, voiceover actor, serial entrepreneur, overall good guy. Brimstone, joining me on Revelations. Thank you, sir, very much.
I appreciate it. Pleasure to be here. Honor and a privilege. And can't wait to meet you in person, brother.
Likewise. Likewise. Many thanks to Brimstone for giving us his perspective on life. And why don't you join us here every Tuesday on YouTube, where you see a different person being interviewed by yours truly each and every week. For changing the world one conversation at a time, I'm Cole Johnson, and this has been Revelations. Thank you for tuning into Revelations. To download this episode, go to Acast and type Revelations. For apparel, go to Spring and type Revelations. Music by Lakey Inspired.